We've been asked several times, why do we show the same video every week? I'm going to tell you why. We've got to transition live stream. So we always start live stream with a video. That way there's not just this hard cut. So now you know there's a reason why we have this video right in the middle. Why do they play the same video? I'm getting sick of this video. No, that is exactly why we do that. So, hey, I'm excited to speak today, but I actually have two more things I need to talk to you about. How many of you, I know I've been asking questions and getting you to raise your hand. How many of you checked a child in today into Destiny Kids? Raise your hand. I'm not going to, just raise your hand. I checked a child in today. Okay. So, I don't know, 30% maybe, something like that. Okay, you can put your hands down. You do not have to raise your hand on this question. Of those of you who raised your hand, how many of you serve in Destiny Kids? Well, you don't have to raise your hand, but thank you for that. I'm glad you did. This is the point I want to make. So we need some volunteers and kids. And I am not a huge fan of getting on this stage and asking people to volunteer for things. But I am to the point where I'm just about ready to get on my hands and knees and beg you, because we need your help. You don't have to teach. We need room coaches. We need what we call paras. We need people who will just kind of monitor the hallway, that kind of thing. Here's the deal. I've got one person right now. This is week 9 that she has served in a row. 9 weeks in a row. Let me say it like this. She has not gotten to sit in here and consume and receive for 9 straight weeks. I've got another one that's back there today. This is week 5 for her in a row. And I'll just tell you, Destiny Church, I don't think that's fair. And I'm asking you, especially those who check kids in on a regular basis, would you consider helping us? Would you consider serving? If everyone did it, you would serve about once every 6 weeks. That's not very much. And you don't have to teach. If you're like, man, I can't teach. I don't know. You don't have to teach. You can just be an assistant back there. So I'm asking you today, without getting on my hands and knees. I'll do it though if that's what it takes. I will do it. But I'm asking you, would you serve? Even if you don't have a kid and you feel just a tug at your heart, I'm asking you, would you serve today? Would you come see me after service? Do we have a serve graphic, Makai? Because I want to make sure we have that. Okay, we don't have the QR code on that. So, but there again, in the seat back in front of you, you can scan a QR code. You can come see me. There's a QR code at the welcome table. You can sign up to serve there. But let's make a difference in these kids' lives. Let's all do our part. Let's not just be consumers. Let's also be contributors, and let's give. And I think our kids deserve it. But more than that, Jesus said, when you do this, when you do it to the least of these, you're doing it unto me. You're serving not one of the pastors. You're serving the Lord. And so I would ask you, please, we would love to have your help back there so that we can be fully staffed. Here's the deal. We're getting to the point, and if you know anything about daycares, you know the state of Missouri regulates this, but we're getting to the point where we're going to have to cap the rooms, meaning, let's just put a number out here. When we get to 15 kids, we can't have any more kids because we don't have enough people and enough adults in there to serve. What I don't want to happen is for you to get here at 9:59, try to check your kid in, and we have to tell you we're sorry. We cannot, because we don't have enough help back there to serve. So I'm asking you, please, we do not want to do that, but please, 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 we're asking you, please serve, and let's serve the body of Christ. Okay, I've got one more thing. We're getting there. I want to ask Tim and Kaylee Shockley to join me on the stage for a second. Come on up, guys. You've probably seen this guy on the stage a little bit. He's been playing guitar for about the last month. As you know or may not know, we are going through a transition of pastor, and Rochelle and I will be taking over in January. And so one of my first order of business is to put my team together. And I have spent a lot of time with this couple, and he came to us as a referral, and came to us actually for worship. As you know, TK is leaving us. If you didn't know, we announced that a couple weeks ago. Yes, that is correct. TK is moving to Florida in about 3 weeks, and he has got an incredible opportunity at a church in Jacksonville, and we're really excited for him. But they first came to us, and he was interviewing for worship. And as we talked, and as we started talking about some of your giftings and some of the things in you, I realized that whether worship is where he lands, I want this guy as my associate pastor, because there are some things in him that I feel need to happen and need to be a part of this place. And so we've spent a lot of time over meals, and we've talked and we've chatted, and I'm going to have him share for just a couple minutes with you for a second. But this is the one thing, if you've ever interviewed people, there's just like one thing that they say that you're like, that's it. That did it for me. And I'll never forget the first time we talked, Tim, you told me, you said, if this works out and you hire me, you will not have a staff member that'll work harder than I will. And I said, and when we left there, Rochelle can vouch for me. I said, I want him on our team. I love his heart. I love his heart for the Lord. I love his heart for people. And we're just so excited for them. But before he shares, can we give a big Destiny Church welcome to Tim and Kaylee Shockley?
Well, check. It's great to finally be introduced to you guys. We're excited. We love Destiny. We're excited for it. I'm actually up here to talk about kids. So I'm messing with you. No. Hey, it's a good problem to have, though, and a growing church. And we realized that when we started coming here, that this is a church that loves the Lord, that is growing, that has young families, that has an energy about it, that just wants to serve and wants to press into God's presence. And that's a part of it. And I've got a child. We checked our child, and he's speaking right to us, right? And so that's just part of it. And I'm excited to get to know each and every one of you. We love relationships. And after service, if every single one of you want to line up and do the old meet and greet and hug us and talk to us, like we're down for that. We love that. We want to meet everyone that we can. We're excited. Like Jason said, coming on board was just what God wanted us to do. Like, I have no other answer for it. I have no other reason for it. It was God's plan, and we were happy to just kind of take a back seat and see what God was going to do. This is where it's at. And we feel like we're already a part of the family. We're excited to become family with you guys and to serve and to minister to all of Republic. And I got to get used to Retmo. I'm from Lebanon, so bear with me on that lingo. But we're excited to be in the community and to be a part of Destiny Church. So thank you guys so much. Again, we'll get to know you very soon, and we're excited to see what God does. So. Thank you, Jason.
Thank you guys so much. We're excited for them. And Kaylee is a teacher in the Lebanon area, and she has background in education, and we're excited for them to get started. Their very first start date is August 15th, so they've been hanging out ever since then, but their official date is August 15th. So make sure you get around, greet them, and just love on them. We're excited for that opportunity. So, okay, how many of you are ready to hear the Word of God? All right. A lot of stuff in the middle. I'm looking at my time, and I'm like, oh, man, I got to get going here. So, hey, we know that last week Pastor Chad kicked off a series called Sent. How many of you were here last week? You were here last week. If you weren't, it's online, and I highly encourage you to watch that message. Great message. I was traveling last week, and I actually listened to it on my way home. Really, really great message. Pastor Chad did an incredible job. But this whole idea of this series is to develop a heart for the lost, to see the lost through the eyes of Jesus. We're going to look at Romans chapter 10, and we're going to kind of break down Romans chapter 10. But before we do that, I want to recap and read Matthew chapter 9. Pastor Chad read this last week. Romans 9:35 through 36. It said, Jesus traveled through all the towns and villages of that area, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news about the kingdom. And he healed every kind of disease and illness. Listen to this. When he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were confused and helpless like sheep without a shepherd. How many of you have ever been confused or helpless before? I have several times in my life. We make bad decisions when we're confused, right? Maybe it's just me, but I make bad decisions. I'll tell you a story real quick. Rochelle and I had this bright idea. We found this booklet at the Arkansas Visitor Center, and it was like, there's like 300 or 400 waterfalls in the state of Arkansas. But this booklet highlighted 18 of them. And I said, what if we made this goal to see all 18 of these waterfalls? And so we've seen 3 so far. And they're hikes. You got to hike in and you go see it, and then you hike back. Well, we went to one not too long ago. We've been to one called Hemden Hollow. Have you ever heard of this one? Don't do it. It is the hardest hike I've ever done in my life. I mean, it is the devil's hike. I'm telling you, do not do this hike. It is beautiful. There's actually a way to float to it, and it's only about a mile in. But Dolph, I think you've hiked it before. It is a tough hike. But we went to one last year called Twin Falls. And it was a moderate hike, and we went in, we hiked in, saw the falls. On our way back, we got lost, long story short. We took a couple of wrong turns. Well, when you become confused, your heart starts beating a little quicker, adrenaline starts going, and you start making bad decisions. And we kept, well, I think it's this way. No, it's that way. No, it's this way. And we were going in the general direction to get back to the parking lot, but let's just say we took the long way and finally made it back. I have a bucket list. You can tell me if you're with me on this one. I have a bucket list item. I want to hike Pikes Peak. It's 13 miles, and you go halfway in one day, and you stay at this place called Bar Camp, and they actually bring a chef in, and they cook your meal for you. You get up at 4 in the morning the next day, and you reach the summit at sunrise, and then you hike down the same day. That is a bucket list. I don't know if I'll ever get there. Anybody with me on that? Brian's with. Look at this. We got some people with us. Some of you don't have to go. I don't want you to go if you don't want to go. It's fine. I want you to imagine that you have planned the perfect Saturday hike. How many of you like to hike? You're hikers. Rochelle loves to hike. I am kind of more of a liker. She loves it. I go because that's something that we do together. But I want you to imagine you have planned a Saturday hike. The weather looks great. You got everything you need. You got your backpack. You got snacks. You got water. You got insect repellent. Don't forget a roll of toilet paper. I'm just telling you, don't forget. Put that in your backpack. But you've got everything you need, and you're headed down the trail. Somewhere along the way of that hike, you take a wrong turn. The sun is starting to go down. The temperature is starting to drop. The trail markers vanish because you're off the trail now. and you realize that you're lost. You pull out your phone, no service, SOS. And you begin to panic. Your heart starts racing. Adrenaline is going through your veins now. You start moving faster. You become confused. You become careless. And you begin to walk faster and faster. And you make some bad decisions and you accidentally trip over a rock or a root, whatever it is. And you actually start tumbling down into a ravine. That ravine is really steep. I know this is hypothetical, but just go with me here. You finally come to rest at the bottom of that ravine. You've got a few branches, maybe a few rocks, some dirt that's finally settled. You're kind of starting to go into shock. You look down and you realize your ankle is badly injured. You try to stand up, you can't. You look up of where you fell from, way too steep to even crawl out, and you're trapped. You can't do anything. No signal on your phone. No one knows where you are. There's no one that can hear you yell because you've tried that. You've screamed, you've yelled out for help, nothing. You're trapped. Now imagine this. Miles away, 2-3 miles away, there's a rescue station. And that rescue station has helicopters, they've got horses, they've got thermal drones, they've got medical items, they've got ATVs, they've got satellite technology, they have everything necessary to save you. All the equipment is right there. The rescuers are trained, the equipment works, the resources are unlimited. But here's the thing. They don't know that you're there. You see, the problem isn't the rescue station. The problem is the connection. Somewhere between the rescuer and the one needing to be rescued, the communication lines are down. And that's exactly what Paul is going to explain to us in Romans chapter 10. God has provided everything that we need for salvation. Jesus already accomplished it on the cross. The question isn't whether God can save. The question is, how will people know about the rescue mission? Paul teaches us in Romans that we aren't just people who occasionally make mistakes. We are a people who are separated from God because of sin. We don't simply need improvement. How many of you know we need rescued? Romans 3:23 tells us that all have sinned and all have fallen short of the glory of God. Romans 6:23 tells us, for the wages of sin are death, but the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ. Romans 5:8 tells us that God demonstrated his love for us, that while we were still sinners, he still died for us. And before we read Romans 10 and learn about this rescue mission, I want you to understand where Paul is coming from. Paul is writing to a church in Rome made up of both Jewish believers and Gentile believers. The Jewish believers believed that they had an exclusive corporate pass to the kingdom because of their heritage. The Gentiles just felt like outsiders looking in. We're Gentile. If you're not Jewish, you're Gentile. We're Gentile. Paul spends the first part of Romans 10 explaining that righteousness, being right with God, is not something you can achieve by how hard you try or a checklist of religious rules, because it doesn't matter how good I am. It doesn't matter how much money I've given. It doesn't matter how good my grandparents were and how they took me to church. The only way for me to be right with God is believing that Jesus is the only way and that He died to pay for my sin and that God raised Him from the dead. That's it. That's the only way. Paul writes these words, Romans chapter 10, look at verse 13. Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. And then he immediately asks 4 questions. He's working backwards here. And he says, but how can they call on Him to save unless they believe in Him? How can they believe in Him if they've never heard about Him? And how can they hear about Him unless someone tells them? And how can anyone go and tell them without being sent? These 2 verses contain the entire rescue mission for the lost. And I'm going to break this down into 2 weeks, staying in our series. I'm going to preach these first 2 questions today, and then we're going to look at the next 2 that we just read next week. But here's point number 1. If you're taking notes today, salvation is for everyone. Now, I know that's simple. I know that you're saying, well, of course it is, but we got to understand this verse before we can understand the next 2. Salvation is for everyone. For everyone who calls. Don't rush past this word, everyone. In Paul's day, that word was shocking because the Jews believed that salvation primarily belonged to them, and the Gentiles wondered, did God even want me? Paul destroys this whole idea by saying, everyone. Everyone. The invitation of Jesus has never been exclusive. The gospel isn't for one race. It's not for one nation. It's not for one denomination. It's not for one political party. It's not for one personality. It's not just for this person or that person. It is for everyone. That means the addict, the executive, the teenager, the single, the married, the divorced, the widowed, the person who carries shame, the person who carries guilt, the atheist, the agnostic, the skeptic, those who grew up in church, those who've never stepped foot in a church. It's for everyone. Maybe you came here today believing you've gone too far. Maybe you've convinced yourself God is tired of forgiving you. I want you to hear the word of the Lord today. Everyone. Everyone. It's not just those who have their life together. It's not just for those who've never made a life-altering decision. It is completely universal. It is all-inclusive. It's not impartial. It's available to everyone. Let me say it like this. The ground at the foot of the cross is completely level. It's completely level. Paul says everyone who calls, calling isn't just believing the facts. How many of you know the demons believe in Jesus? They know who He is. Calling in this, how it's written, means surrender. It's desperation. If you remember the story when Peter was like, Lord, is that you? He's walking on the water. If that's you, call me out there. And Peter, he calls him out, and Peter starts walking on the water, and he starts to sink. And he called out. He didn't say, Lord, I'm starting to sink. Can you help me out here? He said, Lord, save me. That's salvation. That's calling. That's surrender. You call because you've discovered that you cannot save yourself. Following Jesus doesn't begin with confidence in yourself. It begins with surrender to Jesus. To call on the name of the Lord is a desperate cry for help. It's looking at your own life. It's looking at that ravine of sin that you're stuck in. It's looking at that ravine of shame, of brokenness, and saying, God, I cannot climb out of this on my own. Would you take my hand? Would you save me? Everyone who calls, everyone who surrenders, everyone who is desperate and calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. So let's read Romans chapter 10, verse 34. I want to read this again because Paul presents a dilemma. We understand that everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But he says again, but how can they call on him to save unless they believe? Everybody say believe. And how can they believe in him if they've never heard about him? Here's my second point today. Rejection isn't the problem. And I want to explain this to you. Again, Paul is moving backwards through these two verses. I want you to think back to our hiker in that ravine. If that hiker believes that the rescue team hates him, or the rescue team has abandoned the search, they'll eventually stop screaming. They'll eventually stop yelling. They'll curl up and just wait for the end. You see, belief sparks the call for help. How can they believe in someone if they've never even heard of him? And church, I think this is the spiritual crisis that's facing our world today. I want to explain this to you. We look at our culture, our workplace, our schools, our neighborhoods, our travel ball parents that we are with on the weekends. We look at all these people that we rub shoulders with every single day. And when I see people, and maybe this is just the heart that the Lord is giving me as a pastor, but when I see people, I see brokenness. I see people who are broken. I see people trying to fill the void with things like substances, or just with endless career ambition. And that's good to have ambition for that. I see people trying to fill the void with toxic relationships, with digital distractions. And all the while, I'll look at them, and they're freezing to death in a ravine. And it's very easy for church folk to look down on people that are in a ravine and to judge them and to say, look at how messy their lives are. Because of their bad choices, that's why they're there. And that might be true, but let me submit this to you today. Have they actually heard the true story of Jesus? This is on your notes online if you're following online, but if not, I want you to write this down. Many people in our world aren't rejecting the real Jesus. They're rejecting a counterfeit, distorted version of Jesus. They're rejecting this judgmental, angry, political, hyper-religious version of Jesus that they saw on TV, or maybe in a broken church environment. The tragedy, I believe, of the world is not just that people are lost. Listen to me. It's that there is a rescue station that's fully stocked, but the communication lines are down and no one's willing to search for them. This is the rescue station. And they're in a ravine. We got to go search for them, Destiny Church. We've got to go. They have believed a distorted version, a caricature of Jesus, but they don't know who the true Jesus is. Let me ask you that this way. We have the tools to save the lost, but do we lack the will to go search for them? Calling requires belief. Belief requires hearing. Hearing requires someone speaking. Imagine somebody dying from dehydration while standing right next to a fresh spring that they never knew existed. That's heartbreaking. But spiritually, it's happening every day. People are searching everywhere, their careers, their relationships, entertainment, more followers, more likes. They're trying desperately to satisfy, listen to me, a thirst that only Jesus can quench. They're rejecting a counterfeit. But if they just knew the real Jesus, if they just knew the Jesus that came here and was born of a virgin, that fulfilled over 300 prophecies in order, and get this, predicted his death, predicted his resurrection, and did it. If they only knew of that one. I think some people think that Jesus just came here to ruin my fun. Others think he only loves perfect people. Some think that being a Christian is just about rules. Others think it's for only people that, just for people that have it all together. But that question, I've just thought about it all week. Have they really met the true Jesus? The Jesus that healed and cleansed lepers? The Jesus that defended the woman caught in adultery? The Jesus who ate with extortionists and tax collectors? The Jesus that welcomed children? The Jesus that washed dirty feet? The Jesus that stretched out his hands on a cross? I wonder if they're really rejecting that Jesus, or if they really truly have never met him. I want you to think about your own story for just a second. Your salvation story. Who told you? Who told you about the Lord? Was it your grandma? I'd have to say it was my grandparents, for sure. Who told you? Was it a parent, a Sunday school teacher, a friend? I want you to focus in real quick. I want you to listen to this. Someone, somewhere, became part of God's rescue mission for you. Someone, somewhere, became part of God's rescue mission for you right there where you sit. You know Jesus today because somebody cared enough to speak and to tell you. You are someone's answered prayer. Someone delivered the message to you. Someone rappelled down the ravine and told you there's a way out. I've been where you are. Let me help you. There's a way out of here. This is my last point of today. Number 3, the rescue station is open. How many of you know the gospel doesn't need updating? It doesn't need improving. It doesn't need editing. The cross is still enough. The tomb is still empty. Jesus still saves. God hasn't ran out of grace. He hasn't closed heaven's door. He hasn't stopped pursuing people. The rescue station is fully staffed. The power of the gospel is not diminished. The only question is, will the message reach the ravine? You see, God could have sent that message by writing it in the clouds every day. He could just write Jesus saves in the clouds every day. He could have done it that way. He could have spelled it out in the stars every night, Jesus saves. He could whisper it in your ear every single morning when you get up, Jesus saves. But instead, He chose for you and me to climb down in the ravine and to rescue those who are confused and helpless. And Destiny Church, if you've ever wondered, what's Pastor Jason going to do in 2027? What's the vision? What are we doing? Where are we going as a church? I'm just going to tell you right now, we're going after the lost. We're going after the lost. That's what I think about all the time. I shared this with a friend the other day. You know, Jesus was, when He went on His 40-day fast, He was tempted just like you and me. He comes out of this 40-day, 40-night fast. When He comes out, He could have said anything. And in Luke chapter 4, He said, this is the first thing He said. I think it was what was on His heart. It's the most important thing. He said, the Spirit of the sovereign Lord is upon me to preach the gospel to the poor. That means poor in spirit, and to heal the brokenhearted. That's what we're going to do. We're going after the lost. Going after the lost. As we close today, I want you to picture that ravine one last time. But this time, I don't want you to picture yourself as that hiker. I want you to picture somebody you know. Somebody you know that needs rescued. Maybe it's a son or a daughter, a coworker, a neighbor, a friend. Picture somebody that you care deeply about. Someone who's smiling on the outside, completely fallen apart and broken on the inside. Who comes to mind? I don't think it's an accident who comes to mind. I think the Holy Spirit is placing that in you right now. A lot of people might say, well, you're a preacher, you know the scripture. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to share. I don't know how to share the gospel. Listen to me. I might know some scripture, but I could never share your story. Only you can do that. If we just shared our story. I want to wrap this up today. I want to tell this one more story. I know, well, I'm right on time actually. John chapter 5, verse 1 through 8. I was thinking about this last week. Let me read this to you. It said, afterward, Jesus returned to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish holy days. Inside the city near the sheep gate was the pool of Bethesda. I've been there. It's really cool. With 5 covered porches. That's how it's identified. That it's there. The pillars, the columns of those porches are still there. It says crowds of people, blind, lame, or paralyzed, lay on the porches. One of the men lying there had been sick, listen to this, for 38 years. When Jesus saw him, he knew he'd been ill for a long time, and he asked, would you like to get well? Notice Jesus didn't say, can I help you get to the pool? Because it was believed when that pool would bubble up that the first one in would be healed. That's why there was That's why there was lame people laying all around it, because they believed if I'm the first one in, I'll get healed. And Jesus didn't ask him, do you want me to help you get in? Jesus said, do you want to get well? I want you to listen to what this man says. He goes, I can't, sir, for I have no one to put me in the pool when it bubbles. Someone else always gets there before me. And Jesus said, stand up, pick up your mat, and walk, and he was healed. When the man looked at the pool, and he cried out, I have no one, Jesus gave him an answer. But when the lost world looks at the church and asks, who will help me? Listen to me. God points them to us. Romans 10 tells us the rescue station's open. But it also asks the question, how can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one whom they have not heard of? And how can they hear without someone telling them? For 38 years, that man sat by the water because he lacked someone. Church, we cannot let our community any longer say, I've got no one. God has not called us to sit safely inside the rescue station admiring the view. He has called us to go out to the forgotten, the broken, the lonely, the bypassed, your friends, your family, your community, and to be their rescue and to pull them out of the ravine. Because salvation is for everyone. Rejection isn't the problem. The rescue station is open. Here's the question. Will you go on the rescue mission? Will you go? Pray with me today. Jesus, we love you. God, as we're just laying the foundation for where we believe that you're taking us, God, I pray that you would just stir our hearts right now. God, for that one person that you've laid on our heart, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 5.